Welcome to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Being visible as a soul-led business owner isn't just about the practical strategies, marketing tips, and tech systems. It's also about the internal systems, the safety of your nervous system, the somatic connection, and the embodiment of being a badass CEO that will support you in all of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I'm here to share all of that with you on this show. I'm your host, Shani Arsenault, a registered nurse turned visibility coach and business mentor for heart-centered coaches and healers. I created a six-figure coaching practice in my first year of business and scaled to multiple six figures my second year, all in the middle of getting pregnant with my first baby and becoming a new mama. If I can do this entrepreneurship thing, I know you can too. If you're ready to learn how to be a CEO in a way that feels aligned with your heart, become a lighthouse for the people that you're meant to serve, feel free to authentically express yourself and be a magnet for success, and grow your coaching business in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, I can't wait to be in your ear along for the ride. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am talking about something today that I think many of you might be kind of wondering in your head, but don't really have a space to actually be able to talk it out. And that's because I've also had a similar issue of you hear the advice out there of you should only be in one coaching container at a time. But honestly, I don't think that rule applies to everybody. Maybe it does, but I have a little bit of a different take on that. And does that rule actually serve you? That's something that we're going to explore today in today's podcast. I'll just start by sharing here. At one point in my business, I was in 4 different support spaces at once. And I don't think I was being reckless, right? I don't think I wasn't panic hiring coaches. I was actually intentionally choosing support that felt in alignment for where I was at in my life and business. And I have, oh my gosh, I have panic hired coaches in the past, but at this point in my life, whenever I was in 4 support spaces at once, this felt in alignment for me. And that might seem excessive, but I'm going to talk about why it wasn't. So we're really going to have a super honest conversation today about what it actually means to invest in multiple coaching spaces, multiple personal business development spaces, and how to know if it's actually a wise decision for you. And then when it might be more of a distraction, more of shiny object syndrome, than an actual true expansion. Now, we're actually going to dive into the key difference between shiny object syndrome, which I talked about in a previous episode, and kind of aligned multi-layered support and what those actually look like, how they're different. They can kind of be confused for the same thing, but they are very, very different. I also am going to probably go over how to assess what coaching investments are a good move for you, whether multiple coaching investments are a good move, whether it's helpful to just be in one, because I've had both, right? And I've needed both at different times of my life and business. And also here, permission slip for you to make business decisions that actually feel good for you, not based off of what everybody tells you, not based on what the industry says you should do, but based off of what you feel is in alignment for you right now. So, like I said, I was in 4 support spaces at once. So whenever I was in that stage, and I'll kind of break down exactly what support spaces I was in, why I made the decision to invest in those spaces, and what I gained from each one. But the key is that this experience of being held in all of these different areas of my life really changed my perspective on coaching investments forever. So I'll break that story down in just a little bit. But I first kind of want to talk and speak to the difference between shiny object syndrome and aligned support. So I did a whole episode on shiny object syndrome, and I still stand by all of that. But I think it matters to differentiate shiny object syndrome from aligned support, because the coaching industry often makes people feel like they need more and more and more, but not all investments are created equal. And so whenever you think about being in multiple spaces at once, it can feel like a distraction. It can feel like shiny object syndrome, but I don't think the issue is being in multiple spaces. I don't think that's the actual issue. I think the issue is why you're in them. So really identifying why you're in all of these spaces, because I absolutely believe that being in multiple spaces can serve you, especially if you have a very clear why of the investment that you make in them. So shiny object syndrome would look like, signing up for a program because you feel behind and you think that it's like going to fix whatever problem you're having, right? It also looks like jumping from coach to coach without actually integrating what you've already learned, right? I am a big fan of, after a coaching container finishes, taking a little bit of a pause, even if it's a 2-week pause, a 2-month pause, a year-long pause, right? However long you need to really integrate the work that you did with that coach, with that space, and then finding your next support channel there. So shiny object syndrome is the opposite of that, right? Jumping from container to container, from program to program, and not taking the time to integrate what you've already learned from that space. And then you're also leaning into that shiny object syndrome if you're buying into hype without truly considering whether it actually aligns with your actual needs for your life, for your business, wherever it is you're looking for support. What aligned support actually looks like, this is the opposite of shiny object syndrome, is if you are investing in different spaces that serve very distinct needs, like you are very clear on what that container is going to do for you, what you'd like to get out of it, and how it's going to serve your life or business moving forward. Really knowing why you're in each container and what you're there to receive, right? That's what aligned support looks like. It's you feeling empowered by your decision to invest in that support, rather than feeling rushed or pressured or like, you're missing out on something. You feel like it's going to fix whatever issue you're trying to fix. So I want you guys to really feel the difference between a coach who joins every new program, right? Hoping for that thing that finally works, that thing that finally helps them scale their business and grow and gain an audience and make money and build a 6-figure practice. Like, comparing a coach who joins every new program to get all of those results and relies on the containers to get them those results, versus a coach who really strategically invests in specific support for their business, for their mindset, for their personal growth. That's very strategic there. So just really feel the difference between both of those scenarios. So I have some reflection questions for you, and these might even be really good questions to journal on after this episode is done, after you're done listening. So the first thing is, I want you to identify, are you making this investment, whatever coaching container you are considering joining, either coaching container, therapy container, whatever support container you are wanting to invest in, are you making this investment because you are afraid of missing out, or because it genuinely aligns with what you actually need right now? Okay. And what is the real reason for considering another coaching space or adding a coaching space to where what you already have going on, right? Is it clarity, or is it fear-based, right? Being really, really clear on why you're making this investment. And if it's coming from a place of fear of missing out, of wanting, like, hoping that it will solve all the problems for you, that's not the space that you want to make that decision from. This kind of leads into, like, I think it's going to be helpful for you guys to hear a breakdown of why I was in 4 coaching spaces, or not really all coaching spaces, but 4 support spaces all at once. Okay, so I'll break down each one and why I invested in each one. So the first thing that I did, this was back like right after I found out that I was pregnant with my son. Um, I'm a new mom, right? This is my first child. So I very strategically hired support that I needed for different areas of my life. So the first thing that I did was I joined a somatic coaching certification. Now, this isn't exactly like, this is both an educational space and a support space, because I do feel like I did get a lot of support somatically by doing the certification. But for this one, I was essentially killing 2 birds with one stone, right? I was learning the skills to support my own clients in somatic work, in that deep, transformative nervous system regulation kind of work. And it was also an invitation for me to dive in and do my own inner work first, right? And I had just found out that I was pregnant with my son before I signed up for this certification, but I knew that this was the work that I needed to do for myself so that I could prepare to regulate my nervous system and learn all of these tools so I could be the best mom for my kid. And I knew that it was also going to help my coaching practice and really elevate the way that I served my clients, really elevated the way that I market and show up online and things like that. So there was a lot that this certification program actually did for me personally and for my business. So that was a really strategic investment there. And that was not a cheap investment. The next thing that I did was I joined a business group container. Everyone in that container was also a fellow mom, a fellow entrepreneur, and even though I hadn't had my son yet, I knew that I was going to need support with balancing motherhood, with balancing entrepreneurship, and then, this drastic shift in roles and independence and identity. And I wanted to be around people who get it, right? So that is mainly like I didn't really take a lot of business strategy away from there. Honestly, I invested in that, and that was also not a cheap investment. Um, I invested in that because it was really important to me to be around people who got it, to be in community. I think any of you out there who are also moms know that community is everything. And being in community with people who get it, it's invaluable. It's so, so important. So that's really the only reason I was in that container. I mean, I took away a lot from that container, but just being able to be held in a group of fellow mom entrepreneurs, fellow moms who were also coaches running their own businesses was just exactly what I needed. I also hired a one-on-one business mentor. So I wanted to expand my visibility. I wanted to expand my impact. I wanted to take up more space in being supported in my business. And I really wanted that deeper one-on-one mentorship. So I hired my one-on-one coach. I'm still working with her. We've been working together for almost 3 years now. And that is a space that I absolutely know that I needed because I was in a place in my business where I wanted to grow fast. Okay? I wanted to grow really fast. I wanted to scale, and I wanted to get my business ready to be able to support me and my family as I was preparing for this new baby. So that was a really strategic hire there. And then lastly, I hired a human design coach. And I hired this coach because I really did want to work on like deeper self-worth and identity and really unpacking all of the conditioning that had me living in a way that wasn't me. Okay. It didn't fit with my design. And the more I did this work on living in my design and really accepting who I am at my core instead of trying to mold myself to be what I thought everybody else wanted me to be, it really did honestly directly affect the way that I showed up as a mom for my son after he was born. Whew. Every time I talk about this, I get emotional because this work that I did with this human design coach is like foundational in the way that I showed up as a new mom and the way that I, process my own way of being being a parent and the way that I run my household. It really did make me feel so secure and safe in how I did things, even if it was different than how somebody else does them. And it really made me stand my ground in my own individuality, in my own truth, and not question, the decisions that I make as a mom and even in business too. Like it did help me with my business, but mostly it was the best place for me to really learn how to be safe being myself and like healing all of these wounds. Gosh, I'm like getting emotional. Healing all of these wounds that have been there that I've kind of avoided dealing with before my son came was really, really important to me. And I wanted to be able to heal a lot of that before he came. Um, that was really important to me. So I hired my human design coach. I worked with him for a year. Half of that year I was pregnant. The other half, um, I had just had my son. And it really was like one of the most transformative spaces that I've ever been in, honestly. And then after I finished up with him, I kind of replaced that container with a somatic therapist to really help support me in my mental health. I did go through a period of postpartum depression after I had my son. So, and I'm still working with this therapist now, but I wanted to hire a somatic based therapist who specifically supports women in the postpartum period. So yeah, those were the spaces that I invested in during that year that I had found out I was pregnant with my son and the year that I had him. Maybe that feels like a lot, right? Maybe that you're listening to this and you're like, "Holy shit, that's a lot of spaces to be in." But I firmly believe that this was not reckless. Okay? This wasn't me just throwing money out. This wasn't me panic hiring. Each of these spaces really supported me in a different part of my life and business. And I wasn't hoping for one coach, for one therapist, for one container to fix everything. I was intentionally seeking specific guidance for specific needs. And when those containers ended, I naturally scaled back to just my therapist and my business mentor. That's who supports me now is my somatic therapist and my business mentor, my one-on-one mentor, because that felt aligned for the next season. Um, so ultimate takeaway here is you get to decide. Okay, you get to decide what kind of support is right for you. No one gets to make that decision except you. Right? The right investment will make you feel expanded, not overwhelmed. I will tell you, I was uncomfortable as fuck making all of these investments at the same time. It was very uncomfortable for me. And I am so glad that I did. I never regret doing any of it. A couple of reflection questions for you here. If you're considering multiple investments, what specific support do you need right now? Right? Would joining this coaching space, would hiring this therapist, would enrolling in this certification program, would it help you integrate and grow, or would it pull you in too many directions and stress you out? Right? I never felt pulled in too many directions as I had all of these coaching spaces at one time. Never. I always felt held. I always felt safe. I always felt like I had a place to land with whatever problem I was going through, whether it be business or motherhood. I felt so held. Like whenever I think about that time in my life, I really needed all of that support. Because this was a very tumultuous time in my life. I was going through so many like identity shifts and um being a mom really scared me, right? It was something that I felt so my nervous system was going wild with the anticipation of having a new child. And I really needed all of those spaces. I don't think that any of those investments were a mistake. And it never felt like shiny object syndrome. It never felt like a distraction. Every single hire, every single investment felt so aligned, so supportive. Again, I created this really safe environment, this really safe bubble for myself to always feel like I had a place to land if anything came up in business or in this new transition into motherhood. Now, I want to give you some practical tips on how to decide if multiple coaching spaces are right for you, and just like some key things to consider before investing in multiple different programs, multiple different containers, right? So there are probably 4 questions that you want to be able to answer before you make the decision, right? So the first question is, do you have very clear whys? Do you have very clear goals for each coaching space? And if you can't clearly articulate why you're joining, you might not need it. Okay? That might be an indication for you to pass until it actually feels correct. Second question is, are you actually using the support you already have? Okay, are you implementing what you've learned or just collecting more information? Because I think sometimes people can be inside of coaching spaces, they can get a lot of this information and then they're not actually integrating it. And then they're not seeing the results that they want. And then they kind of think it's the container's fault. So then you kind of like search for other things, other external things. Are you actually using the support you already have if you're currently in a container? The third question I want you to be able to answer is, do you feel excited and empowered or desperate and overwhelmed? Those are two very different energies. If you go into a container feeling desperate and overwhelmed, again, you're relying on the container to fix your problem for you, right? But if you're feeling excited and empowered, you actually have more capacity to integrate the things that you learn, to utilize that support space. Like one comes from aligned action, and then the other comes from like fear-based decision making. So check in with yourself. Do you feel excited? Do you feel empowered? Or does it feel a little bit desperate? Does it feel graspy? Does it feel like you are overwhelmed and you're looking for someone to take the edge off? And then the fourth question, and this is a big one, right? Can you financially and energetically sustain it? Okay, so multiple investments do require time, energy, integration, resources, right? So you really do also want to check in with what your money story is. Do you have the finances? Meaning, are you going to be able to pay your bills? And if you're not, if you're going to be struggling putting food on the table and keeping a roof over your head, maybe it's not the time to have multiple spaces that you invest in. Now, if making those investments feels a little bit uncomfortable for you, if it stretches you a little bit, but you're not going to have a problem putting food on the table or keeping your place to live, it is something that you just want to consider, right? Whatever money story you might have going on, make sure you're taking a really, really good look at that and being really honest with where you're at. There's also no judgment if you don't feel financially ready for whatever reason. If your nervous system is seeing this financial investment as a threat to your survival, we don't want to make any of these decisions out of desperation or out of pressure. So I'll give you a couple of examples of how this can look, right? Like let's say you wanted to join a second program, but then you realized you weren't using the full support of the first one that you were in. So you decide to wait. Okay, you decide to wait until you really feel like you fully integrate, and then you explore joining that second program. Another example is maybe you are someone who knows that you need both mindset and business strategy, or both deeper inner work and strategy. So you join a business mastermind and a trauma-informed coaching space at the same time, right? That's something that can feel in alignment for you. So how do we give ourselves the space to slow down and pause and not give into the panic higher, okay? There's a few things. A few things. I really, really firmly believe that writing it down, journaling on what you actually really need before making a decision, whether that's writing it down, throwing it in a voice memo, just like processing it out loud. What do you actually need? Okay, seek that clarity first. Whether, through reflection, whether through a clarity call, if you need to interview a bunch of coaches, conversations with your trusted mentors that you might have right now, whatever you need to do to feel clear. Okay. And I want you to also, like, yes, it's nice to get validation from external sources, but trust your own instincts, right? Instead of letting like industry pressure dictate your investments, really trust your own instincts. So, some reflection questions for you here. What is one investment that you've made in the past that felt truly in alignment? Okay, what made it different? What made that investment different? What made that one feel aligned versus maybe some of the other ones that you were looking at? And on top of that, how do you want your next coaching decision to feel? Right? Whenever you move into your next coaching space, how do you want to feel moving into that one? We don't want to feel desperate. We don't want to feel like we're panicking and trying to find the right space to solve the problem of either not getting the results that you want or not growing at the pace that you want, not making the money that you want. We want it to feel in alignment. We want it to feel good. All right. So, final thoughts here. Um, there really is no one size fits all rule for coaching investments. right? I think the key here is to make sure that you make these decisions to invest in different spaces, whether that's coaching, therapy, educational, like certifications. The key is intention. What intention is behind the decision making? Like, are you panic buying or are you choosing aligned support? And just again, reminder, I'm going to repeat this until it feels like it's sinking in. No one else, no one else can decide what is best for you, your life, your business. Your support decisions are yours alone. So really take ownership, invitation to take ownership and really stand by those decisions, really stand by your own experience. And so this is an invitation for you. If you have heard me talk about vibrant visibility, if this is a space that you are at all are curious about, also, it's important, I think, to claim that you want a kind of support, right? It's really more about the alignment per choice, right? Is it a fit or not? Even if you are not entirely sure that you want to join this next round of Vibrant Visibility. We were actually supposed to start in March, but because we got sick, my whole family got sick, I pushed it back a little bit. The next group is going to start in April. So there is a little bit of time for you to join, right? And if there's a small part of you, even a small part that really does want to do this deeper work on feeling safe to be more visible in your business and then create a strategy for visibility that feels in alignment and feels authentic to you, I would love for you to at least apply, right? Filling out the application questions for the Vibrant Visibility group is actually something that a lot of people have told me they've gotten breakthrough just by filling out the application. And it takes 10 minutes. So if you're curious about it at all, if this is something that you know you want, even if you don't want it right now, fill out the application. I'll have the link in the show notes for you. I would love to support you in that space either now or in the future. So I'll drop that link below for you too. And encouragement here to not feel ashamed for seeking the support that you actually want, that you actually desire. Even if now's not the right time, you're giving yourself permission to say, this is something I want in my future. This is something that I desire. This is something that's on my heart. All right. I hope you have a beautiful week and I will see you soon. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this was helpful for you, subscribe to the show to make sure you're always in the loop when a new episode is out. And I would love to invite you to join me in the free Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches community, where we hang out and chat about all things visibility, tech, systems, and heart-centered business building. I regularly share tips and tutorials and go live every now and then, and it's just nice to be in a community with other like-minded coaches and healers. So you can join this free space at alignwellco.com/community, and I can't wait to see you there.